much time do I have?
All night.
Oh, don't tell me that.
You can do it.
If you get me going.
You got about 35.
35. My name is Brian Lockwald, and I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Hey, Brian.
And I've been asking God. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. I got a clue maybe, but I'm going to try and ask God to direct my thinking today. I was struck sober on the 23rd of November in 1991. Seems like a long time to me. I never expected to be sober. I didn't expect it to be anywhere in my life that it is today. So I'm going to try and tell you what I was like. I was just young, immature, and I didn't know I was alcoholic. I knew that I drank a lot, and that was not a problem. It really wasn't. I don't know if anybody knows anything about the Army, but I racked up about 5 Article 15s in a pretty short period of time. And what that is, if you do something wrong in the Army, then they can send you to jail, usually, for just about anything. That's against the rules. If you show up late, you can go to jail. Generally, we don't like to do that. So I like to give you fair warning. They gave me fair warning, and what that did is the commander can put you on extra duty for like 15 days or 45 days and take half a month's pay and stuff like that. And I had 5 of those. So I decided that I didn't like getting in trouble, and I knew that alcohol had something to do with it. And I endeavored to quit drinking when I was, I think, 23 or 24. I decided I'd only been drinking since I was like 17. And like I said, alcohol wasn't a problem until I decided to quit. I drank more while I was quitting drinking. It was pretty crazy. And I got in more trouble because I drank more. And I was really quite, I was just totally baffled. The story of my last few months of drinking go exactly like this. This is the story. I'm not going to drink today. I iron my uniform, shine my boots, fix my room for the next day, make everything nice and neat, put on some nice music, light a little oil lamp that I bought just for this purpose so I could be in a proper atmosphere to sleep. I would go to bed, and I would toss and turn for an hour or so. I would get up, put my clothes on, put my wallet in my back pocket, look at myself in the mirror, and vaguely think to myself that I shouldn't be doing this, and I would go down to the Irish pub for a couple of beers to take the edge off so I could come back and go back to sleep. And I wouldn't make it back till about 4 or 5 the next morning. I'd make it through PT. I'd sleep through breakfast. I'd make it through work. I'd sleep through lunch. I'd make it to after work. I'm not going to do this again today. And I would iron my uniform, shine my boots. It got to be pretty ridiculous. But the fact is that I was bouncing checks so I could buy more alcohol. I was quitting. It was really, I had no idea what was going on at the time. I have since learned that clear symptoms of this thing called the phenomenon of craving that's described in the beginning of our book. Clear symptoms. Put alcohol in my body and something happens to me, it's virtually impossible to stop drinking. I did not know that. I'm glad that I know that today. I also know that my knowing that has nothing to do with keeping me sober, other than maybe how I seek help for it. So my particular story, I went on sick call, and I told them I was having sleeping problems, which I was, because I wanted to go see the drug and alcohol counselors, because I knew that I was in some serious trouble. I could not quit drinking. I was fixing to get kicked out of the Army after about 8 years. I told the guy, the PA, that I was having some sleeping difficulties. And he said, well, describe it. I said, well, I just can't sleep at night. I'm under constant stress and pressure. He said, I think you have a sleep disorder. And so I went to the building that has the drug and alcohol counselors in it, but they also have the psychiatrist. I walked into a psychiatrist's office, and the psychiatrist said, how can I help you? And I said, I want to quit drinking, and I can't. He told me to write a page about my life, and I did. I couldn't tell you what I wrote on that page to this day. I wrote some page about, I have no idea what I wrote on that paper. And I handed it back to the guy, and the guy said, I don't think I'm going to help you. pretty. He said, "I'm not going to help you." He pulled a copy of his bill season out from his desk. I never saw this guy again in my life. I never saw him again. I have no idea where he pulled a copy of his bill season out, punked it down on his desk. He said, "Here's a meeting schedule. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. There's a meeting on this. I was in Germany, in this concern down the street, this place where Army base concern." And he said at 8 o'clock there's a meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I think you should go there. And it was like it wasn't Monday or Wednesday or Friday, so I had to wait a day or so. And he said, "You can read anything in this book that'll get you by to that meeting." And I never saw him again. And I showed up 15 minutes late to my first AA meeting because it was in the basement outside the building, and I didn't know that. So I walked around inside for like 15 minutes. I could have asked directions from the guy on CQ, but I was too ashamed to tell someone I was going to an AA meeting. Yeah, I do that at meetings too. And so I walked in 15 minutes late, and I stared at my shoes. There were 3 guys in this little basement room smoking cigarettes. And I stared at my shoes, and I said, "Hi, I'm sorry I'm late." And this guy named Jim at the head of the table said, "You're never late. Come on in and sit down. It took me 35 years to get here." And I don't remember anything else about that meeting. And I'm a little foggy about the rest of the meetings I went to for a period of time because I drank between every meeting. I drank on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday for a period of time. Mostly because I read the steps on the wall and I said, that is the flimsiest crap I'd ever heard in my life. That can't be the answer at these meetings. Especially that third. Oh my gosh. How nice for you, but it's much more complicated than that. And I'm not even sure if there is such a thing. And I drank after every meeting because of that. I really did. But I managed to stay sober for 45 days because my unit went to the field. And this was directly after that. I came back from Desert Storm, and I drank all summer and got in a bunch of trouble. Decided to quit drinking about a month after I got back and kept on drinking, and things got worse. So we went to the field to go for about 45 days. Back then, you used to fire all your weapon systems at one time because of the lack of ranges in Germany. You just can't get a range whenever you want. So you take the whole unit at one time. You fire all your weapon systems and all the guys. Get them all qualified at one time. And I didn't drink for 45 days. And I came back on a Friday. And I was walking to and this is proof, I know about the physical craving, I can see that, and this is proof of the lack of ability to mount a mental defense. Holy cow. I'm walking to the meeting, it's 7:30, 7:45. I'm waiting for the light to change, to cross the street, to enter the gate, to go to the AA meeting. These guys are funny. They've heard this a million times. And the thought struck me while I was waiting for the light to turn green, because you can't cross the street in Germany just whenever you want. You got to wait for the green light. So I'm waiting for the green light, and the thought struck me I could have a couple of beers and go back to the barracks and go to sleep because I just got back from the field. And nothing, I had nothing for it. The next thought in my head was that meeting will always be there, and I went down, I had it, and I had a Guinness. And the last thing I can remember is making a bed. I could drink the house out of Guinness. It's the last thing I remember from that night. But I was on my way to a meeting. I wasn't even thinking about drinking on the way. I didn't have nothing for it. 5 Article 15s, getting kicked out of the Army, bouncing checks at the PX, girlfriends DXing me after a week or two. None of that came to mind. Not a thing came to mind other than that meeting will probably be there next time I want to go, and I'm going to go have a couple beers. And a couple didn't happen. And I came to on the 23rd of November. And I had heard at all the meetings some things sunk in. And they said those who can't recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this program. And I decided that day, and that's why I tell you I was struck sober that day. I completely gave myself to I didn't even know what I was doing. I'd only heard how it works, and I don't think I'd read the book at that point. But I was totally, and I'm glad that I had some guys that got me to follow through with that decision. Because they were like, yeah, you can't, right? God can. Tracking. I said, at least he did for you guys, so I'm going on that for evidence. Not so sure about me. Okay, good enough. You think you want to let him? Sure. Let's do a 4-step. And I was like, whoa. We are really moving a little fast. And 4 months, maybe 5 months later, I went to a treatment facility in Germany because my commander he was nice enough to send me to a treatment facility. 6-week inpatient. I'd like to tell you I was never institutionalized, but they locked the doors. I couldn't get out whenever I wanted. I just got to remind myself that. And it was on the psych ward of the hospital in Germany. So, but I'm going to tell you some stuff. I don't normally talk about this stuff. I don't know. Here's the deal. I'd been doing some stuff that my meeting between meetings, since meetings were Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, was this one cassette tape of a speaker that my guy who ended up being my sponsor gave me to listen to. And the guy on that tape said he believed 2 things. He said that anything, and if he didn't believe him, he would get drunk after the meeting. He said everything that could harm him or hurt him had been removed from his life with no thought or effort on his part. And all he had to do was fill the conditions of this program in his life and give it away to anyone they wanted, anytime they wanted, free and for fun. I've listened to that tape like 100 times. I know that guy's, if I ever meet him, I could probably, like these guys, I could tell my story, right? I could tell that guy's story today, at least up to the point when he told it on that tape. I don't know. And then he said anything that could lead as far as life to be fulfilled had been given to him, no thought or effort on his part. Fulfill the conditions of the program, recovery, and give it away to anyone who wants it anytime they want it for free and for fun. And I wanted that. I wanted that, what he had. So I started to do stuff. I didn't believe in God, and so I would get on my knees at night and stuff my boots under my bed like this one guy. There were 3 guys at this meeting, and one said, stuff your boots under the bed. When you're on your knees in the morning, look up and ask God to take care of your day for you, and you won't have to worry about nothing else. So I started to do that, and I'm glad I didn't have a roommate, right? Because I felt embarrassed by myself, because I had absolutely no experience or belief with any of this. But I'm here to tell you that right before I went to treatment, I was looking in the mirror, and I saw something like connected to me. I don't know how else to put it. It was like totally bigger than me, and it scared the crap out of me. And I went running to my sponsor. I was like, I just had this weird experience. I was looking in the mirror, looking in my own eyes, and I saw something huge. It wasn't me. And he said, that's good. Keep that up. It'll be all right. Totally, this guy was totally smooth all the time. I've had these sponsors in my life. I had a sponsor when I moved to California named Larry. What's his name, Larry? Leonard. His name was Leonard, and he'd go, you just need more God and less Brian. All right? Okay. So, and he's like, just keep, and I went to treatment, and I decided I was going to do my 3rd through 5th step of treatment. Like, it's a safe place. The world ends. The world stops, and you get to do this work there. And I was really, like, I couldn't, like, honestly do the 3rd step. I didn't think I could, like, rigorous honesty. Don't think I'm there yet. I'd like to be. And I went to a meeting, and this big Indian dude told his story, and he described me. He said, I'm there. I want to be there, but I need something to go on. And he said he went outside, and he said, God, if you're there, can you please give me something to go on? And he said he looked down, and there was a 4-leaf clover between his feet. And I walked out to PT the next day, and I said, God, if you can do it for that guy, maybe you can do something for me. And I looked down between my feet, and there were 2 4-leaf clovers right smack between my feet. I swear to God. That was enough for me to get going on a 4-step. I picked them, and I put them on the windowsill, and I ran my PT run around, and they were gone when I got back. So I started a 4-step, because that's what the guy said. They said it immediately. Now, do a 4-step. So I started a 4-step, and I started to write people I was angry with, because that's what you're supposed to do. I think today I've done it a couple times, and I try and help other people do it. It's the easiest part of the program. Jesus, make a list of people you're angry with. What could be more? What can be? And why? My stepmom, vindictive, D-I-T-C-H-E, right? Was easy. But I can only come up with like 4 or 5 names. I was such a good guy, and I wasn't angry with anyone. So I asked, my new employer, because I had a new employer, I asked him to help me out. And the thought struck me immediately that maybe I could write down a few people that I'd give peace of my mind to right now. And I ended up with 69 entries on that first list. And like I said, writing down why was pretty easy. Writing down what it affected was actually pretty easy. Mostly it affects my self-esteem and my relationships with others. my ambitions and goals every now and then, and my security every now and then. Mostly my self-esteem is affected any time I've ever done this. It's just how I am. And I made a list of, I think I missed this going the first time through, but it was pointed out to me that there's a set of actions. That the 4-step is a series of lists, observations, and prayers. I'm supposed to do some observations about that. And I did, and I came to the conclusion that I couldn't get rid of that stuff. Just like I said, if I could get rid of it, I wouldn't be here making the list. I'd just get rid of it and go not drink no more. And I have to ask God to help me be patient and tolerant and understanding, and help me not to argue and fuss with people anymore. And that's, gosh darn, the hardest thing. I threw a temper tantrum just this morning because my dishes. Yeah, I won't even tell you about that. Maybe I'll tell you about that. But I got something for it, right? I got something. I can ask God to direct, for patience and understanding and tolerance. So I got to live a spiritual life to have God keep giving me this thing. And I've come to the conclusion that the hallmarks of a spiritual life are patience and understanding and compassion and tolerance. Only because all the most spiritual people I can read about, that's what they exhibit. From the Dalai Lama to Mother Teresa to Gandhi to the Pope, and trying to be patient and tolerant people. So, and I made a list of my fears, which was sometimes difficult. I don't know what my fears are sometimes. I know I'm afraid of falling off a cliff. But, I'm really afraid of what you think of me. And this is tied to, the exact nature of my wrongs. And I'm glad I had some guys that helped me through this stuff. Because when I lie to you, or I misrepresent myself, or I embellish my stories, it's because I'm afraid of what you're going to think of me, right? And that's a fear. And I have to ask God to remove it and direct my attention the way He had me be. And I have to use that a lot. Because I don't think I'm going to measure up. Even to this day. I go to work and I think that somebody's going to figure it out, right? And I ain't going to. So far, they're all fooled. But the fact is that God put me there, and I have to ask Him what He wants me to be there, wherever I am. And then the fear is a lot like, because then I'm being what I was afraid I wouldn't be usually. And I had to make an inventory of my sex conduct, and I ended up with an ideal to live towards. I have an ideal to live towards. Which I never had before. I didn't have that. I just totally didn't have it. I just go do whatever the heck seemed to come next. And I have an ideal to live for, and it's the only reason I've been married. I've been married 22 years. It's the only way I've been married. I have an ideal to live towards. And the other half of the other 2/3 of the 4-step are why she ain't DX'd me yet, probably. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. So I finished that. Well, the biggest 4-step I ever done in my life was the first one, and like that night, somebody from AA showed up. I don't know how they found out. It wasn't even in my town. I got sober in Schaffenburg, and I went to Frankfurt for treatment, and somebody from the Frankfurt groups showed up and signed me out. And I said, "Where am I going?" He said, "You're going to go do your 5th step. You just finished your right." And I'm like, "How do you even know this?" It's like AA mafia around. And he took me to his house, and we read the stuff at the beginning, pocket our pride and go through it. And I didn't. The first night that I was struck sober, I went, it was a Saturday, there was no meeting. So I went to the Catholic Church, the only thing I'd ever known. And I got with this priest at this midnight mass, and I said, I'm an alcoholic, and I need help. And he's a pretty wise guy, or God's in charge from the beginning, as far as I can tell. He said, you have nothing to do for penance because you are absolutely powerless, and you got no choice. How am I going to make you do penance for something you are powerless over and got no choice over? And he hung out with me, and we went back to his place, and he said, if you want to get over this, he wanted me to do a 5th step that night. First night sober. He's like, what's the worst things you ever did? And they came bubbling up, and he let me sit on his couch until sunrise the next day. I couldn't tell him. And I couldn't tell this other guy the first crack at this, because he just signed me out. I didn't know him. I'm afraid of what you think of me, right? And the next week, we got out of treatment. We're all successful treatment. And they whisked us away to this AA convention in Germany. It happens once a year, and just so coincided with us getting out of this place. And I grabbed a dude I saw in meetings, and I said, I did a 5th step last week, and I didn't tell this guy everything, and I got to do something about that right now. And we went upstairs, and I finished it. And I went home, and I took the book off the shelf, just like it says, and did I do the best I could? I thought I did. And I finished the 7th step, which is like crazy every time I read it. It's like a paragraph, right? Like a short little paragraph. And that night at the meeting, I don't tell a lot of people about this either, but a voice right about here behind me started to tell me that God was here. And I thought I had gone crazy. I'd finally had a psychotic break, right? But I'd done LSD in the past, and I know the difference between psychotic break and like being lucid, right? And I was very lucid. I could understand everything this guy was saying. I looked around. Nothing weird was happening except this voice right about here kept telling me that God is here. And I went to sleep very confused. I got up the next morning, went to the Sunday morning meeting at this convention, and it started over again. This little voice started saying, God is here. And I don't know how to describe what happened besides in retrospect, I think as a result of following the directions, doing the steps, making a decision, that some things came together to me, and I felt the presence of the God of my understanding. And it's been, it was very difficult to explain in 35 minutes probably. But if you've ever been surfing and you've ever been out on the swell of the ocean, I got to tell you, multiply that times a gigaton, and you might be close. That feeling has been with me from that day to this. And sometimes it's like background music. I don't realize it's playing until somebody points it out, but gosh darn, it's still there. And sometimes it's as strong as being immersed in the ocean on the swell like that. And that, gosh darn, that's just the beginning. Holy cow. I went to California when I was 6 months sober, and I stood up at the first meeting I went to and was like, I just got here from Germany, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober 6 months. I'm working on and let's go to coffee. And we started going to coffee, and I got into the California crowd around Monterey because I went to Fort Ord before it closed. And I met my wife in AA at an AA dance, and she swept me off my feet. But here's the deal. The program, I was sober, happy, life is awesome, right? Single guy, getting out of the Army, finally, because I just felt it was the thing to do then. And a good friend of mine, because here's the deal. If you wanted to meet me, like at the Big Sur meeting on Saturday morning or something, and I'd be like, yeah, we'll be there. And if I got up and felt like not going, I'd just not go. And if you had a problem with that, then, call your sponsor or something, because, right? Because that's obviously your problem. And I had a friend of mine really chew my butt one day. He said, if you're going to have any friends around this place, you're going to be where you say you're going to be and do what you say you're going to do. And he hurt my feelings, and and I went home directly. And I asked God to help me be responsible. I had no idea the repercussions of this, only in retrospect. I met my wife that night. So, and I got married a month later, and I had bills and a stepson and car and payments and insurance, and I get a real job, and I had to get responsible, and he ain't done with me yet because I still ain't responsible, but I'm a bit farther along. And I see that as a direct result of being like, I'm ready, please help me be responsible. Here's a wife, bam, and kids. Totally. And I don't, I'll pray for patience. I ain't afraid of what God's going to give me for patience, and not anymore. I really just, the more times I wake up and ask God to direct my thinking and my actions, first thing, the better my day is, always. I see the practice of the program over years for me has been like, I don't know if anybody ever tried counting breaths for meditation or anything like that. I like that stuff. But the first time I ever did it, I didn't make it to 1. I sit down, compose myself. I'm going to count breaths to 5. Ready? What about all this stuff going on over here? My brain just went pa-ching. I didn't make it to 1. And the program's kind of like that for me. I got to come back to it constantly because I just get sidetracked. I've come to, after a day, a week, a month, of not doing anything, not asking God for direction, not asking for an intuitive thought or decision, not asking for inspiration, not carrying the vision of God. All the stuff the big book says I should be doing every day, not a thing. And I feel like I just came out of an IUD strike, like, wow. Okay, I'm still breathing. Didn't drink. because those are scary times. And it's that strange mental blank spot that scares me more than anything else, really, today. So I really work hard at being diligent with those directions. I'm glad I had the opportunity to come back into the Army and do something like jump out of an airplane, which is like one of the stupidest things I've ever done. But I have an analogy for me today for this idea of abandoning myself to God as I understand God. Right? And abandon, that's what it says in the end of the book, and it says it in how it works. Complete abandon. And when you step out the door of an aircraft and you're attached to a static line, you ain't going back. You ain't going back. That is abandonment. You're going to get to the ground, of course, but how you get there is entirely up to something else. Entirely. Not up to me. And I got that in my head for, wow, that's abandonment, and if I treating God like that today. Because there ain't no middle of the road, or ain't no halfway in this thing. I either can keep myself I either can find a sufficient reason to stop drinking, or I ain't got no choice. It's either or. And I got enough evidence amassed for me in the short period of time I got that I ain't got no choice. And once I do, I ain't got no control. It's going to take an act of providence. And there's two guys in that first meeting I went to that impressed that upon me every time we met. And one of them I thought was a spiritual genius until I read the book. Because I swear, he would say things like, we must burn into the consciousness of every man that he can get sober regardless of anyone. Because I'd come complain about my platoon sergeant or my commander or my first sergeant rider. You get sober regardless of anyone. Just got to clean the house and trust God. I'd be like, wow, guy's a genius. And I got to how it works, a couple months later. And he's like all in there. All he did was follow the directions. And it worked out. It worked out just great. I like to tell people my life is impossible today. It's impossible. I'm going to tell you. 5 Article 15s, relief cause NCOER. If you know what that is, 9 years in the Army, and I was a non-promotable sergeant. If it makes sense to you, it doesn't. But if it does make sense to you, you know that you don't go the next 10 years and make master sergeant and change your MOS and get a top secret clearance and go around the world and represent the United States and the government and do crazy stuff. It's amazing. It's impossible. This guy that walked into AA, though you don't stay sober 20, you don't have a wife for 22 years, you don't have kids. No, none of that stuff happens. Even sober, you could be sober. None of that stuff's going to happen. Some sergeant major asked me some time ago how I got into doing what I do. What brought you this way anyway? And I didn't tell him the truth because I'm afraid of what he's going to think of me, right? But I know the truth. The truth is I made a decision a long time ago to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. And it's like, poof, here I am. That is the truth. It's really the truth. I don't know how else to explain it. And now I'm in a position where my life is pretty awesome. Over any considerable period, my life has gotten better, never worse. And that is over untreated alcoholism over any considerable period. It got worse, never better. And now I'm wondering how it could possibly get better. How can it get better? I'm curious more than I am. I used to have a sense of doom about me. That has been removed over time. I'm super curious how it could get better. I have no idea. I got a plan, but I tell people I don't even know if that's going to pan out because God's probably got He's always had a different plan. I didn't know I'd be doing what I'm doing here. I didn't know. 10 years ago, I did not know I was going to do. I thought I had a different plan. I was working on that. But this whole idea of what the program's asking me to do to abandon my life to the care of God, in my head, it's a fair trade-off. I get to stay sober. I get to be kept sober. If you ever watched the movie The Matrix, I hope I don't leave too many people in the dust with this one. In the movie The Matrix, there's this guy named Neo, and he goes to the big wise guy, and he says, so what you're saying is I'll be able to dodge bullets. And he says, no, when the time comes, you won't have to. And it's just like me and anyone else comes to you say, yeah, I'm going to be able to not drink someday, right? And you're like, nope, when the time comes, you won't have to. And that has been absolutely my experience. I don't have to. I don't have to make a decision about it. It's placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. And all I got to do is stick close to my employer and perform his work well, to the best of my ability. And he takes care of that other stuff. And I get to. There's another speaker who says, you know, if I brought all my problems in front of God, he'd go, "What are you doing with this? This isn't yours." And what? How? You're not even supposed to have what the? And you know, there would be nothing left, and I just got to go have a good time and wander around life and do the best I can with what I got, with what He's given me, and that's my experience today. Thank you for inviting me. Awesome. I have to come back now and participate in your group, Alcoholics Anonymous, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.